rivalry as well. Natural-born rivals is the name of the story. Brett Forrest wrote the cover story and highlights a new era in one of the great rivalries in all of college sports, Michigan and Ohio State. Anish Shroff alongside Brett Forrest, the author of our cover story. Chris Lowe covers the SEC for ESPN.com. Tom Luginbill, ESPN's National Director of Recruiting. Brett, I want to start with you. It's been a bizarre offseason for Jim Harbaugh. Takes his shirt off at a satellite camp. There was the weird interview with Colin Cowherd, some strange tweets going to Judge Judy. All this, is this just the zen of Harbaugh, or is this some sort of calculated ploy?
None of it's contrived, and I'll tell you why that is. Harbaugh is so confident that he's beyond impulse control. I think what we're seeing is just his impulses coming out. You mentioned the Cowherd interview. How does that get Harbaugh to his main goal, which is to build a winning program at Michigan? I don't think it does. I think that sends the wrong message. But what it tells us is that Harbaugh is out there just doing whatever feels right to him. I'll also say that what's more contrived, being controlled in an interview that you're not having fun with, or just letting it all hang out? I think that's what we're seeing with Harbaugh.
Tom, what's Ohio State's reaction to Jim Harbaugh's arrival at Michigan?
I think there were probably a lot of other guys that the fan base wished that maybe Michigan would have pursued and hired. I know specifically from Urban Meyer's standpoint, this is a guy that he respects tremendously. Take away the rivalry. All right, he respects this guy for two reasons. Number one, he can evaluate personnel. So he knows the caliber of player that he's going to be up against in recruiting is going to be strong. Number two, he's a grinder. So the work ethic that he brings to the table is something that Michigan sorely needs, especially when it comes to recruiting and all the things that go along with representing the program. And that's something that I think Ohio State fans, if you're really truly into a rivalry, you welcome that, because right now this hasn't been a rivalry.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I mean, Urban Meyer loves rivalries. I mean, when he was at Florida, he kept a chart in the locker room, their record against all their rivals, Florida State, Tennessee, Georgia. He knows, and I think with Harbaugh being at Michigan now, that makes this rivalry whole again. It makes the Big Ten whole again. And I think without a question, even though maybe some of the Ohio State fans would like to have seen somebody other than Harbaugh there, Urban Meyer can't wait to get this thing going.
Brett, we're always going to bring this back to Woody and Bo. That's the benchmark for this rivalry. What is the dynamic between Urban and Jim?
Right now there is no dynamic. They don't even know each other. They met for the first time in May at the Big Ten headquarters for a coaches meeting. They met again this summer at a recruiting camp outside Detroit. They don't know each other. And that's really what our story is about. You have two guys having to build a personal rivalry within the construct of an institutional rivalry. But they do have something interesting in common. They were born in the same hospital.
You know, it's interesting you talk about how they don't know each other. When Urban Meyer left the University of Florida, he came in here and did some television broadcasting with us, and we were sitting right in this very studio looking right at that monitor, and we're doing a film breakdown of Andrew Luck as he's going into his senior season. And we start getting into a conversation about some of the things that was making Andrew Luck special. And Urban just leans over and he goes, "You watch. Alex Smith will have the best season in his NFL career this coming fall." Okay? And I said, "Well, why do you think that is?" He goes, "Because that guy coaching him knows what he's doing." And that guy being Jim Harbaugh. And so that in and of itself kind of tells you the respect of the rivalry. May not know, he knows what he's all about. And I think that's really healthy for this thing.
Chris, you cover the SEC. What can a coaching rivalry like this do for a conference?
Well, you look just at the SEC. Some of the best rivalries have been strong personalities at the school. You go back to Bear Bryant at Alabama, Pat Dye at Auburn. Now, that rivalry in itself is outstanding. But when you have two strong personalities and it's at two schools like this going at it, and both these guys subtly love to sort of twist the knife when they get a chance. Go back to the Florida-Georgia game when Urban was there. Georgia had won the year before. Urban was upset. Georgia players piled in the end zone the year before. The next year, they're winning by 40 points. He calls 2 timeouts in the last minute of the game. So, without question, and go back to what Harbaugh did with Pete Carroll when he got to Stanford, you know, predicting that, hey, He may be gone in a year. So both these guys in their own way love to sort of twist the knife.
Do you find it interesting? Here's Ohio State. They're at the apex right now. Urban Meyer's first season, they go undefeated. They come within a quarter of playing for a championship in his second season, win it all this year. Does Jim Harbaugh have Columbus uneasy? Maybe that's not the right word, but I don't know what is the right word there.
I think he has the most football-minded people in Columbus uneasy, and I'll tell you why. We know that Ohio State has gone 11-2 in the last 13 meetings with Michigan, but in the period just prior to that, Michigan went 12-3-1. What was the difference? Lloyd Carr was nearing the end of his career, took his foot off the gas, and we had a new dynamic coach in Columbus in Jim Tressel. It could happen, and I think the people at the top of the Ohio State program are very wary.
It's incredible. Michigan hasn't played a game yet under Jim Harbaugh. He has already brought considerable buzz to this program. Natural-born rivals is the story. Brett Forrest is the author of that story. You can read it in the upcoming issue of ESPN magazine. Brett, we appreciate you joining us.